The Ghostlight Collectors. Chapter 1. Dust and Discovery. The attic was a treasure trove of memories, each dust-covered box a potential gateway to the past. I sneezed as I lifted the lid of another cardboard container, sending motes dancing in the weak sunlight. "Gesundheit, Lily," I muttered, mimicking my grandmother's voice. The thought of her made my chest tighten. 6 months since she passed, and her absence still felt raw. I ran my fingers along the box's edge, remembering countless nights curled up in her lap, listening to tales of restless spirits and ancient mysteries. Those stories had sparked a hunger for the unknown, a desire to peek behind the veil of our mundane world. My hand brushed against something cool and metallic. Curious, I reached deeper, my fingers closing around a solid rectangular object. As I pulled it out, my breath caught. It was a camera, but unlike any I'd seen before. Its body was tarnished brass, with intricate engravings that seemed to shimmer. The lens was crystal clear, despite the dust coating the rest of the device. Something about it felt alive. "No way," I whispered, examining every detail. My heart raced, a familiar excitement building. This was exactly the kind of thing Nana would have loved, mysterious, old, and begging to be part of a good ghost story. I raised the camera to my eye, pointing it at the cluttered attic. Through the viewfinder, the world looked different, sharper, with shadows that seemed to move. I quickly lowered it, blinking rapidly. Must be a trick of the light, I thought, but I couldn't shake the feeling that this device was special. Carefully placing the camera in my bag, my mind raced with possibilities. I needed to show this to Jake and Zoe. Maybe this would be the breakthrough we'd been waiting for in our amateur ghost hunting adventures. I grabbed my phone, nearly knocking over a stack of magazines. My fingers flew as I typed out a group message. "Guys, you won't believe what I just found. Emergency meeting at my place ASAP. This could change everything." Jake's response came first, predictably skeptical. "What? Did you find a dusty old Ouija board? Or maybe a crystal ball?" I rolled my eyes, smiling. Jake's cynicism was as much a part of our ghost hunting trio as Zoe's tech wizardry, or my own unwavering belief. "Just get over here, smartass. Trust me, this is big." Zoe chimed in. "Intriguing. I'll bring the EMF meter just in case." As I descended from the attic, the camera a comforting weight in my bag, I felt we were on the brink of something momentous. Our previous hunts had all ended the same, hours of wandering through supposedly haunted locations, jumping at every creak and shadow, only to come away with nothing but blurry photos and inconclusive EVP recordings. But this time would be different. I could feel it in my bones, the same way Nana used to say she could feel a storm coming. Whatever this camera was, wherever it came from, it was going to change everything. I set the camera on my desk, staring at it while waiting for Jake and Zoe. In the fading light, the brass seemed to glow with an inner fire. I traced the intricate engravings with my fingertip. For a moment, I could have sworn I felt a pulse of energy, like a heartbeat beneath the metal. "What secrets are you hiding?" I whispered. "And why do I feel like you've been waiting for me?" The doorbell jolted me from my reverie. I took a deep breath, squaring my shoulders. It was time to convince my friends that this old camera was worth investigating. Time to embark on a new adventure. As I headed downstairs, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were about to step into a world far stranger and more wonderful than we'd ever imagined. The Ghostlight Collectors were about to make their biggest discovery yet, and I had a feeling this was only the beginning. Chapter 2. Ravenswood's residence gravel crunched under our tyres as we approached Ravenswood Asylum. The decrepit building loomed before us, its broken windows like hollow eyes. I clutched the antique camera, its weight oddly comforting as I stepped out of the car. "Well, this place is a real charmer," Jake quipped, his skepticism tinged with unease. Zoe was already unloading equipment. "Lily, grab the EMF meter. Jake, don't forget the infrared camera." As we gathered our gear, excitement bubbled in my chest. Something felt different about tonight. "Let's review our tech," Zoe said, glasses glinting in the fading light. She held up a device resembling a high-tech walkie-talkie. "Spirit box. Scans radio frequencies for ghostly communication." Jake snorted. "Or picks up random radio chatter we mistake for ghosts." I nudged him playfully. "Where's your sense of adventure, Mr. Skeptic?" "Left it at home with my common sense," he retorted, fighting a smile. The asylum's entrance loomed before us, massive doors creaking open at a touch. A chill raced down my spine. "Spirits be gone," I murmured, reciting one of Grandma's protection charms. "What was that?" Zoe asked, adjusting her thermal camera. "Nothing," I said quickly. "Just talking to myself." We stepped inside, and the atmosphere shifted. The air felt heavy, oppressive. Our flashlights cut through darkness, revealing peeling wallpaper and abandoned medical equipment. "EMF's already active," Zoe reported. "Could be old wiring, though." I raised the antique camera, feeling that strange energy pulse through me. Through the viewfinder, the asylum seemed to warp and shift. I snapped a photo, the flash momentarily blinding. "Geez, Lily." Jake blinked rapidly. "A little warning next time?" "Sorry," I mumbled. "It just felt right." We ventured deeper, our footsteps echoing off tile floors. In what must have been a day room, the temperature plummeted. "You feel that?" I whispered. Zoe nodded, wide-eyed. Thermal cameras showing a moving cold spot. Even Jake looked unsettled. "Probably just a draft," he said unconvincingly. A crash echoed from down the hall. We huddled closer, hearts racing. "What was that?" Jake hissed. "Let's find out," I said, equal parts thrilled and terrified. Approaching the noise, I raised the camera again. Through the viewfinder, I saw something. A faint, shimmering outline. I clicked the shutter, hands trembling. We explored for hours, documenting every odd noise and inexplicable cold spot. I took photo after photo, each one feeling more significant than the last. As night waned, even Jake's skepticism faltered. "I hate to admit it," he said as we prepared to leave, "but this place is seriously creepy." "Told you," I grinned, patting the camera. We emerged as dawn broke, exhausted but exhilarated. Packing up, a mix of hope and uncertainty settled over us. We hadn't seen ghosts with our naked eyes, but maybe, just maybe, we'd captured something on film. "Another bust," Zoe yawned. I bit my lip, looking at the camera. "Maybe not," I said slowly. "We should check the film." With trembling fingers, I opened the camera's back. Whatever we found, I knew our lives were about to change forever. Chapter 3. Captured Spirits. My hands trembled as I held the developed photos from the antique camera. The dim light of our makeshift darkroom, Jake's bathroom with a red bulb, cast an eerie glow over the images. I couldn't believe my eyes. "Guys," I whispered, "you need to see this." Jake and Zoe huddled around me, their breaths catching as they took in the impossible. There, in stark black and white, were unmistakable figures, people who hadn't been there when I snapped the photos. "No way," Jake muttered, his usual skepticism faltering. That's not possible." But it was. The first photo showed a gaunt woman in an old-fashioned nurse's uniform, her hollow eyes staring directly at the camera. In another, a young man in tattered clothes huddled in a corner, his translucent form revealing the peeling wallpaper behind him. Zoe adjusted her glasses, leaning in close. "The clarity is incredible," she breathed. "I've never seen anything like this in all our investigations." I nodded, still too stunned to form coherent thoughts. We'd been on countless ghost hunts before, but all we'd ever captured were orbs of light easily explained as dust particles or lens flares. This was different. "It has to be a trick," Jake said, running a hand through his hair. "Maybe the camera was rigged, or the film was already exposed." "With images this clear?" Zoe shook her head. "Highly improbable. Besides, I watched Lily load the film herself." As they debated, I couldn't tear my eyes away from the photos. Each spectral face seemed to tell a story of pain, loss, unfinished business. A chill ran down my spine, but it wasn't entirely fear. There was excitement too, and a burning curiosity to know more. "Guys," I interrupted their technical discussion, "don't you see what this means? We've done it. We've actually captured proof of ghosts." The realization hit them at once. Zoe's eyes widened, and even Jake's skeptical expression gave way to awe and uncertainty. "If these are real," Zoe said slowly, "it could revolutionize paranormal research. We'd need to run more tests, of course, control for variables, replicate the results. Or," I cut in, an idea forming, "we could go straight to the source." They looked at me questioningly. "We've got this camera that can actually photograph ghosts. I explained, excitement building. Why stop at one haunted asylum? There are famous haunted locations all over the country. We could visit them, take photos, gather more evidence. You mean like a road trip? Jake asked, eyebrow raised. I nodded enthusiastically. Exactly. A cross-country ghost hunting adventure. We're on summer break after all. When else will we have this opportunity? Zoe bit her lip, considering. It would allow us to test the camera in various environments, different types of hauntings, different historical contexts. Whoa, hold on, Jake interjected. Are we seriously considering this? Driving across the country chasing ghosts? Why not? I challenged. Jake, look at these photos. You can't deny there's something here worth investigating. He stared at the images again, his resolve wavering. I could see the spark of curiosity in his eyes, fighting against his innate skepticism. It is our last summer before college, he admitted reluctantly. Exactly. I grinned, sensing victory. One last adventure before we all go our separate ways. Come on, guys. Who knows what we might discover? A moment of silence hung in the air. Then, slowly, Jake's lips curved into a smile. All right, he sighed. I'm in. But we're doing this properly. Research, planning, safety precautions, the works. Agreed, Zoe nodded. I'll start compiling a list of locations and the equipment we'll need. As they began discussing logistics, I turned back to the photos, tracing the outlines of the ghostly figures. A thrill of anticipation ran through me. We were about to embark on the adventure of a lifetime, armed with a camera that could capture the unseen. Little did I know then how much that decision would change our lives, and the dangers we were about to face. I whispered a silent thank you to my grandmother, wherever she was, for leading me to this camera. Then I joined my friends in planning our ghost hunting road trip, eager to uncover the secrets waiting for us across the country. Chapter 4. Echoes of Battle. The setting sun painted Gettysburg in long shadows as we arrived, casting an eerie glow over fields once soaked with soldiers' blood. A chill ran down my spine, unrelated to the cool evening air. This is it, I whispered. Gettysburg. Jake parked, and we sat in reverent silence, history's weight pressing down on us. Hard to believe so many died here, Zoe murmured, scanning the peaceful landscape. We grabbed our gear and set out. The antique camera felt heavy in my hands, a constant reminder of our extraordinary journey. Okay, I said, injecting enthusiasm into my voice. Let's see what we can find. As we walked, Jake recited battle facts, his skepticism momentarily forgotten. I half listened, distracted by a growing sense of something in the air around us. Twilight deepened, and mist rose from the ground, curling around our ankles. I shivered, feeling as though we walked through more than just fog. Hey, Zoe called, pointing to a cluster of trees. That looks like a good spot. We set up our equipment with practiced ease. As Zoe fiddled with the EMF meter, I raised the antique camera to my eye, its familiar weight oddly comforting. That's when I saw him. Through the viewfinder, a figure materialized, a young man in a tattered Union uniform, his face a mask of determination and fear. He stood at attention, rifle clutched in his hands, staring at something beyond my vision. Heart pounding, I pressed the shutter release. Guys, I whispered, voice shaking. I think I got something. Jake and Zoe crowded around as I carefully removed the photo. As the image developed, we all gasped. There he was, clear as day. A ghost, captured on film. That's impossible, Jake muttered, doubt evident in his voice. Look, Zoe said suddenly, pointing at the background. What's that on the tree? I squinted, following her finger. Etched into an old oak's bark was a strange symbol, an intricate knot of lines twisting impossibly. I've never seen anything like that before, I said, excitement and unease churning in my stomach. Me neither, Zoe replied, already researching on her tablet. Suddenly a chill ran through me. The hairs on my neck stood up, and I felt watched. I spun around, searching the deepening twilight, but saw nothing. Did you guys feel that? I asked, barely above a whisper. Jake nodded, face pale. Like someone walked over my grave. We huddled closer, our discovery's excitement now tinged with growing unease. A twig snapped in the darkness beyond our clearing. Maybe we should call it a night, Jake suggested, voice unsteady. I nodded. But as we packed up, I couldn't shake the feeling we'd stumbled onto something much bigger. The ghostly soldier, the strange symbol, the eerie sensations, all seemed to point towards a mystery just beginning to unfold. Hurrying back to the car, our footsteps unnaturally loud in the battlefield stillness, I clutched the antique camera close. Whatever we'd set in motion by using it, I sensed our journey was far from over. The drive back to our motel was quiet, each lost in thought. Staring out at the dark landscape, I felt a thrill of excitement beneath my fear. We were on the verge of something big. I could feel it. And whatever it was, we were going to see it through to the end. Chapter 5. Winchester's Web. The Winchester Mystery House loomed before us, its Queen Anne-style architecture a labyrinth of turrets, dormers, and misplaced windows. I couldn't shake the feeling that the house was watching us, its countless eyes tracking our every move. "This place is nuts," Jake muttered, gawking at the sprawling mansion. "Who builds stairs to nowhere?" "Sarah Winchester did," Zoe replied, her eyes glued to her tablet. "Supposedly she built non-stop for 38 years to appease the spirits of those killed by Winchester rifles." I clutched the antique camera, its weight reassuring against my chest. "If there are spirits here, we'll find them." As we entered, the air thickened, like wading through invisible cobwebs. Our footsteps echoed off the hardwood floors, each creak setting my nerves on edge. "Let's split up," I suggested. "We'll cover more ground that way." Jake frowned. "After Gettysburg, I don't think—" "We'll be fine," I insisted, ignoring the chill down my spine. "We've got our walkie-talkies. First sign of trouble, we regroup." Reluctantly, we parted ways. I found myself in a long corridor lined with doors. Some open to empty rooms, others to walls. The bizarre layout made my head spin. I raised the camera, its lens catching dim light through stained glass. That's when I saw her, a translucent figure at the hall's end, pointing at something. My heart raced as I snapped a photo. The flash lit the corridor for a split second, and the spirit vanished. "Guys," I whispered into my walkie-talkie, "I think I got something." We met in the grand ballroom, its chandelier casting dancing shadows. I showed them the photo on the camera's screen. Zoe gasped. "Lily, look what she's pointing at." There, woven into the intricate woodwork behind the spirit, was the ethereal knot symbol. "It can't be coincidence," Jake said, his skepticism wavering. "First Gettysburg, now here." Zoe tapped furiously on her tablet. "I found something. There are rumors online about a secret society called the Veiled. They're supposedly linked to supernatural hotspots across the country." A cold gust swept through, extinguishing the chandelier's electric candles. In the darkness, Jake inhaled sharply. "Did you feel that?" he whispered. "Something just brushed past me." A door slammed somewhere in the house, the sound echoing through empty halls. "We need to leave," Zoe said, her voice shaking. We hurried through the maze-like corridors, the house seeming to shift around us, doors appearing where none existed before. We burst into sunlight, hearts pounding in unison. Safe in our car, we examined the photo and Zoe's findings about the Veiled. "If this society is real," I said, "they might have answers about the camera and this symbol." Jake ran a hand through his hair, a nervous tic I'd noticed more lately. "Why do I feel we're getting into something way over our heads?" Zoe adjusted her glasses, expression grim. "Because we probably are. But we can't stop now. We need answers." I nodded, feeling a mix of excitement and dread. "Where to next?" "Waverly Hills Sanatorium," Zoe replied, pulling up a map. "If we're looking for answers about the Veiled and the ethereal knot, that's our best bet." As we drove away, I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. In the rearview mirror, I swore I saw a figure in one of the windows, its arm outstretched, pointing us towards our next destination. Whatever secrets the Veiled held, whatever connection they had to the ethereal knot and my grandmother's camera, one thing was certain. Our journey was far from over. And with each discovery, the stakes were rising. I gripped the steering wheel tighter, my resolve strengthening. We were in this together, come what may. Waverly Hills Sanatorium awaited, and with it, I hoped the answers we sought. Chapter 6. Waverly's Wrath. The heaviness in the air hit us as we stepped out of Jake's beat-up Jeep. Waverly Hills Sanatorium loomed before us, its dilapidated facade a stark reminder of past suffering. "Guys," I whispered, gripping my camera bag, "I've got a bad feeling about this place." Jake, ever the skeptic, quipped, "Come on, Lily, it's just an old building. What's the worst that could happen?" Zoe shot him a look. "Do you really want me to answer that? I've got about 15 scenarios, each more terrifying than the last." I smiled, grateful for their presence as we approached the entrance, gravel crunching beneath our feet. Inside, the temperature plummeted. Zoe's flashlight beam danced across peeling walls and debris-strewn floors. "Let's start with the first floor and work our way up," I suggested, steadying my voice. "Zoe, can you get an EMF reading?" She nodded, pulling out the device. It immediately beeped rapidly. "Whoa," she muttered, "these readings are off the charts." I raised the antique camera, its familiar weight reassuring. Through the viewfinder, the edges of my vision blurred and shifted, as if the air itself was alive. As we explored deeper, unease grew. Shadows seemed to move, and whispers echoed through the halls. "Did you guys hear that?" Jake asked, his skepticism faltering. A crash echoed from nearby. We jumped, huddling closer. "We should check it out," I said, curiosity overriding fear. In the next room, our breath came out in visible puffs. It was empty save for broken chairs and a rusted bed frame. Suddenly the air shimmered and darkened. A mass of swirling shadows coalesced into a vaguely humanoid shape with glowing hollow eyes. "Oh my God!" Zoe gasped. The entity moved with shocking speed, appearing in front of Jake. He stumbled backward, tripping over debris. The entity reached out with elongated, shadowy limbs. "Jake!" I screamed, throwing myself between them, raising the camera on instinct. A blinding flash filled the room as I snapped the photo. The entity recoiled with a piercing shriek. For a split second, I saw a twisted, corrupted version of the ethereal knot symbol glowing at its core. "Run!" I yelled, hauling Jake to his feet. We tore through the hallways, the entity's wrath on our heels. Objects flew, doors slammed, and the air vibrated with malevolent energy. We burst out of the sanatorium, not stopping until we reached the jeep. Jake fumbled with the keys, hands shaking. As we peeled away, I saw the entity watching us from an upper window, its hollow eyes boring into me. Miles later, Jake pulled over. We sat in shocked silence, reality sinking in. "That was..." Jake started, unable to finish. "Real," Zoe completed, her voice small and shaken. I pulled out the camera, hands trembling as I removed the film. "Guys," I whispered, "I think we're in way over our heads." The developed photo showed the entity, a mass of writhing shadows with the corrupted ethereal knot blazing at its center. "What have we gotten ourselves into?" Jake asked, fear evident in his voice. I had no answer. Our ghost hunting adventure had become something far more dangerous and far more real than we'd ever imagined. We needed answers fast. Our next stop, New Orleans. If anyone could help us understand what we were dealing with, it would be the enigmatic Madame Laveau. As we drove off into the night, the weight of our discovery pressed down on us. We were no longer just amateur ghost hunters. We had stumbled into something ancient, powerful, and potentially world-altering. Somehow, we had to find a way to set things right. Chapter 7. Voodoo Revelations. New Orleans' oppressive heat hit us like a wall as we stepped out of our rental car. The air hung thick with humidity and spices, a stark contrast to Waverly Hills' sterile chill. I wiped sweat from my brow, the antique camera a heavy weight around my neck. "Are you sure about this?" Jake asked, his eyes darting nervously along the colourful row of houses. I nodded, feigning more confidence than I felt. Madame Laveau is our best shot at understanding what's going on. Zoe squinted at her phone. "According to the locals, she's the real deal. If anyone can help us, it's her." We made our way down the uneven sidewalk, jazz drifting from a nearby bar. The address led us to a small purple house with intricate ironwork adorning its balcony. A faded gold sign in the window read, "Spiritual Consultations." Before I could knock, the door swung open. A woman stood before us, her dark eyes piercing. She was shorter than I'd imagined, but her presence filled the doorway. "You've come," she said, her voice rich like honey. "I've been expecting you." Jake shot me a skeptical look, but uncertainty flickered in his eyes. We followed Madame Laveau into a dimly lit room, heavy with incense. Candles flickered everywhere, casting dancing shadows on walls covered in strange symbols and artifacts. "Sit," she commanded, gesturing to a round table draped in deep purple velvet. As we settled, her gaze fell on my camera. Her eyes widened and she inhaled sharply. "Child, do you know what you carry?" I swallowed hard. "We were hoping you could tell us." Madame Laveau's fingers hovered just above the camera's surface. "This is no ordinary camera. It's a spectral lens created by the Veiled over a century ago." "The Veiled?" Zoe leaned forward, intrigued. "We've seen their symbol, the ethereal knot." Madame Laveau nodded gravely. "The Veiled were a secret society dedicated to communing with the dead. They created this camera to document their interactions with the spirit world." "But why is it showing us corrupted symbols?" I asked, recalling the twisted version from Waverly Hills. Her expression darkened. "The camera was stolen and misused. Its power in the wrong hands has weakened the barrier between the living and the dead." A chill ran down my spine. Jake leaned forward, concern replacing skepticism. "What does that mean for us? For the world?" "It means you've stumbled into a dangerous game." Madame Laveau's eyes met each of ours. "The corrupted symbols mark places where the veil is thinnest, where malevolent spirits can more easily cross over." Zoe gasped softly. "The entity at Waverly Hills was likely drawn to the weakened barrier," Madame Laveau finished. "And it won't be the last." I felt the weight of responsibility settle on my shoulders. "What can we do?" Madame Laveau retrieved a small ornate box from a cluttered shelf. "The damage must be repaired, the spiritual balance restored. You three, with this camera, are uniquely positioned to do so." She opened the box, revealing herbs, crystals, and what looked like bone fragments. "I'll prepare you for a ritual. It must be performed where the veil is thinnest." "Where's that?" Jake whispered. "Whisper Bayou," Madame Laveau replied ominously. "A place where worlds blur, where the Veiled once performed their most powerful rituals." As she explained the ritual, I felt a mix of fear and determination. We'd started this journey seeking proof of ghosts, and now we faced forces beyond imagination. "Are you sure we can do this?" I voiced our shared doubt. Madame Laveau's gaze softened. "You must. The camera chose you, Lily Chen. Trust in that, and in each other." Leaving with our supplies, heads spinning with new information, I sensed our real journey was just beginning. Whisper Bayou awaited, promising a confrontation that would test us beyond measure. I looked at Jake and Zoe, seeing my own mix of fear and resolve mirrored in their faces. Whatever came next, we'd face it together. Chapter 8. Bayou's Balance. Moonlight filtered through gnarled cypress trees, casting eerie shadows across Whisper Bayou's murky waters. As we exited Jake's beat-up jeep, the humid air clung to my skin like a damp shroud. The chorus of frogs and cicadas paused, as if the swamp itself held its breath in anticipation. "Well, this is sufficiently creepy," Jake muttered, his usual skepticism now tinged with wariness. After Waverly Hills, none of us took this lightly. Zoe's EMF meter beeped softly, a stark contrast to the bayou's natural sounds. "Readings are off the charts," she whispered, eyes wide behind her glasses. "The veil between worlds is definitely thin here." I clutched the antique camera, its weight both comforting and terrifying. This was our chance to set things right, to repair the damage we'd unknowingly been part of. Madame Laveau's words echoed. "The camera is both the key and the lock, child. Use it wisely." We trudged through soggy ground, following Madame Laveau's hand-drawn map. The ethereal knot symbol etched into certain tree barks guided us deeper into the bayou. In a small clearing, Jake suddenly stopped. "Guys, I don't think we're alone." Through the camera's viewfinder, I saw ghostly figures shimmering at the clearing's edges, some benign, others decidedly not. I recognized the malevolent Waverly Hills entity, its form more solid in this liminal space. "We need to start the ritual," I said, striving for a steady voice. "Now!" Zoe nodded, setting up Madame Laveau's supplies, candles, herbs, and a vial of murky liquid. Jake stood guard, eyes darting between the encroaching spirits. Raising the camera, I focused on the clearing's center. Through the lens, the air shimmered like heat waves on asphalt, the weakened barrier between worlds. "Oh my God!" Zoe gasped, Lily, your feet! I looked down. My legs were becoming translucent, the boundary between living and dead blurred, with me caught in the middle. Keep going, I urged, fighting panic. We have to complete the ritual. Zoe began chanting, her voice growing stronger. Jake joined in, his skepticism finally shattered. As their voices rose, spirits grew agitated. The Waverly Hills entity lunged at Jake, a roiling mass of darkness and hate. I stepped between them, raising the camera like a shield. A brilliant flash erupted from the lens. When my vision cleared, the entity recoiled, dissipating like smoke in wind. The knot! Zoe shouted. Lily, you need to capture the knot! I swung the camera around, searching frantically. There, in the shimmering air at the clearing center, I saw it. The ethereal knot, pulsing with otherworldly light. I pressed the shutter, holding my breath. The world tilted. Air crackled with energy, and for a moment I saw through the veil. Ghostly faces peered back, curious, angry, lost. Then, like a snapping rubber band, everything settled. The shimmering faded, the oppressive feeling lifted. Spirits at the clearing's edge became misty before disappearing entirely. We stood in silence, our ragged breathing the only sound besides renewed wildlife chorus. Did it work? Jake finally asked, voice hoarse. I looked at the camera, then my friends. We were all solid, fully present. I nodded slowly. I think so. I think we did it. Zoe laughed shakily, collapsing onto damp ground. I can't believe we just repaired a tear in reality's fabric. And all before graduation, Jake added with a weak smile. As we made our way back through the bayou, I couldn't shake the feeling that our journey wasn't truly over. The weight of the camera in my hands felt different now, a reminder of the responsibility we'd inherited. So, what happens now? Jake asked as we neared his jeep. The first rays of dawn were breaking through the cypress canopy, casting long shadows across our path. I paused, considering. I don't think we can just go back to normal after this. Zoe nodded, her eyes bright with a mix of excitement and trepidation. The Veiled. They must have more secrets, more locations where the veil is thin. And someone needs to keep an eye on those places, Jake finished, surprising me with his eagerness. I smiled, feeling a surge of affection for my friends. So we keep going, keep exploring? Absolutely, Zoe grinned. Think of all we could learn. Jake shrugged, but I could see the sparkle in his eyes. Someone's got to keep you two out of trouble. As we piled into the jeep, exhausted but exhilarated, I knew our lives had changed forever. We were no longer just amateur ghost hunters. We were guardians of a hidden world, protectors of the delicate balance between the living and the dead. I cradled the antique camera in my lap as Jake started the engine. Its presence was a constant reminder of the power of knowledge, the importance of respecting the unknown, and the strength we found in facing our fears together. So, where to next? Jake asked, glancing at me in the rearview mirror. I pulled out the map we'd been using, noting the other locations marked with the ethereal knot symbol. How about we start with the nearest one and work our way out? Zoe leaned forward, pointing at a spot on the map. Ooh, there's one in an old mining town in Colorado. That could be interesting. As Jake pulled onto the main road, I felt a mix of anticipation and nervousness flutter in my stomach. We were embarking on a new chapter of our lives, one filled with mystery, danger, and the unknown. But as I looked at my friends, Jake's determined expression as he drove, Zoe's excited chatter as she researched our next destination, I knew we were ready for whatever came next. The road stretched out before us, full of promise and hidden secrets, and we, the unlikely heroes of a world most people never see, were ready to face them all. With the antique camera as our guide and our unbreakable bond as our strength, we set off into the unknown, ready to protect the balance between worlds, one haunted location at a time. As the bayou faded in the distance, I couldn't help but smile. Our greatest adventure was just beginning.